This is your macroeconomics video on supply side economics. Before we get into supply side, let's just take a brief look at the general federal government budget. So obviously governments they have income coming in. Governments generally get their money through income taxes. This is true of our federal government. They also tax businesses' profits. So businesses do pay some taxes, although a much lower rate than personal consumers. If the government wants to spend more than they brought in taxes, they can borrow money. The government borrows money by selling bonds on the open market. When you sell a bond to somebody, they give the government money today, but the government has to pay that person back with interest over time. So just like if I were to borrow money from a bank, the government has to pay interest on this borrowed money, which is what causes part of the debt to rise at a much larger rate than it was previously. Once the government has income coming in, they get to decide how to spend it. The federal government spends a significant portion on government transfer payments. Remember, these are payments that go to people for entitlement programs. The biggest federal government entitlement programs are things like Social Security, Medicare, and disability. State governments also have some of these social safety net programs, but they do unemployment and welfare, food stamps, and things like that. The next biggest portion of the government budget is national defense. And then we have all the other programs that the federal government offers through all of the various parts. Education programs are an example, but we have many various departments of the government. So when we talk about fiscal policy and the government gets to set the spending priorities and of course the tax priorities, we know that fiscal policy will affect aggregate demand. So how they're going to spend their money or what level of taxes will shift aggregate demand either to the right or to the left. But a cut in tax rate is going to give workers an incentive to work more. So supply-siders have an argument that if you cut taxes and people get to keep more of their income, it might increase the amount that they work or the productivity at which they work, because it feels like you're getting a raise at your job, but you're not. You're just getting the same income, but the government is taking a smaller slice of that income. But the argument is that if you feel like you're getting paid more, then you're going to be more productive at work or you're going to take on more hours. As you do that and you are more productive at your job, then you are literally supplying more. Productivity is a shifter of the short-run aggregate supply line. So people who believe this are referred to as supply-side economists. Sometimes you might hear them referred to as trickle-down economists. Trickle-down is not really the same as supply-side, although some people who like supply-side would also consider themselves proponents of trickle-down. Supply-siders believe that tax cuts could lead not just to aggregate demand shifting right, but also supply shifting right. Now, it would have to be certain types of government programs. So either they cut taxes for specific types of people that then lead to productivity increases, or if the government is going to spend money, then they should spend money that help all businesses equally. Supply-siders do not believe that the government should pick favorites. So you shouldn't give a tax cut to people who are developers, but then raise taxes on doctors, or give a subsidy to car manufacturers, but agricultural workers pay full rate. Supply-siders generally want the government to spend money in these three areas: education, infrastructure, and innovation. These three areas affect all businesses positively, regardless of what industry they're in. Every business has to have educated workers. So having good skilled workers coming out of high school and college, ready to work full-time and have basic understandings, that's important. Every business uses the infrastructure to ship goods and services to people, to ship parts, and of course to get their employees to and from work. And then of course innovation. We want to encourage people to start new businesses by creating and inventing new things. So if the government is going to spend money, supply-siders would prefer that the government spend it on these three areas, all three of these things. Yes, if government is spending money, that would shift aggregate demand to the right. But if it's on these three things, they would also eventually shift aggregate supply to the right as well.